Ready? Are you ready? It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. Unbelievable! This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And it is a great day to be alive on Westwood One Sports. It's a hump day. Hey, Mike, what day is it? Mike. It is Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. We are just a little more than 24 hours away from football. I know it's preseason football. I know it's the Cardinals and the Panthers. It's the Hall of Fame game, but it's football. And we're jacked up for it here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. You can always hang with us a myriad of different ways. Myriad, a big word for a lot, but I really wanted to use it today. It was on the daily word of the day calendar. A myriad of ways. Obviously, on all of our affiliates across the country, and we thank each and every one of you hanging with us there. Inside the Westwood One Sports app, also inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, and of course, we're live on Sirius XM channel 375 as well. You're always invited to be a part of the show, too, at 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910, or jump in the chat on YouTube, streaming live there at youtube.com/@thekostos, TheKostos. As mentioned, Nick is off today. I am Chris Mack in for him, and we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We just do. We've got news from all over the NFL with training camps rocking and rolling now. And as I mentioned, just 24 hours or so away from the first preseason game of the year. We are going to check in with Sterling Bennett out by the Bay in San Francisco, where I may be starting to buy into this electrical substation rumor. I know it's wild, but no one can stay healthy. We will check in with Randy McMichael in Atlanta, where there was good news and bad news out of Falcons camp yesterday. We will check in with our very own Linnell Willingham of Westwood One Sports, who has been, he like Johnny Cash, I've been everywhere. Baltimore, New York, Pittsburgh, Philly, Washington. He's headed to Cleveland later this week as well. His training camp tour continues, so we'll check in with Linnell in the second hour of the show as well. The first college football coaches top 25 poll is out. I think there's one team that nobody really knows what they want to do. Or maybe it's not that nobody knows, it's that there's no consensus about this team. We'll have some over and under reactions. Well, not underreactions. That's boring. You don't want to hear that. Overreactions to the first coach's top 25. Tarek Skubal made his debut last night in Wrigley. We had a big debut in the Bronx as well. Contract extensions all over the league. Plenty to get to. And before the end of the first hour, we will talk about this Save College Sports Act with Brooks Austin of the Film Guy Network. Brooks is excellent at talking ball, and we will talk ball, but he had the most succinct description of what the Save College Sports Act could mean for college football I've seen yet. It's gone a little viral on social media over the last couple of days, and I just like talking to Brooks because his accent, even though he's not from Louisiana, reminds me of my family from Louisiana. So this time of year, as college camps are opening across the country, every once in a while, you got to just talk to somebody with that deep Southern drawl, and Brooks is going to give it to us coming up in a little more than 30 minutes here on Westwood One Sports. But let's get to the 5 biggest stories of the day right off the top. We call it the high 5. Let's go.
5.
Darnell Wright has turned himself into an all-pro performer, certainly worthy of the contract he got. He deserved it, but Ryan Poles needed him to earn it as much as Darnell Wright needed him to earn it.
Bears beat reporter Herb Howard yesterday on 104.3 The Score in Chicago, talking about the Darnell Wright contract extension with the Bears. This isn't the sexiest extension from yesterday because it's not a skill position player, but it may end up being the most important one or the most impactful one, at least immediately on this year. Look, Darnell Wright wasn't going anywhere anyway, but Ryan Poles and the Bears just secured Darnell Wright services really for as long as they want them going forward, at least the next 4 years. $116 million, 93 of it guaranteed. Now the highest paid right tackle in NFL history and one of the best, if not the best, right tackle in the league right now. Go back to the draft. It was 2023, right? When the Bears took him 10th overall. And they moved back into that spot, you may remember. The Eagles moved up to number 9 so they could snag Jalen Carter from Georgia. Nobody would argue that, even though it's been a bit rocky at times, that has worked out for the Eagles. So it was really imperative that if the Bears were going to move back in that 2023 first round and take an offensive lineman, that offensive lineman hit. And I remember, being the Steelers fan that I am, wanting my team to draft an offensive tackle and hoping Darnell Wright of Tennessee would slide to my Steelers down there in the mid to late teens. They ended up moving up to 14 to take Broderick Jones, who is this close to being a bust. Hasn't had his fifth-year option picked up, had a neck injury last year, probably won't be a starter this year. Some people are saying he looks more like a tight end in his build. Looks like he's lost weight. I don't know if that's a good thing for a tackle. Anyway, that's in Pittsburgh. In Chicago, it was all about nailing the Darnell Wright pick, and they've nailed it. This is the guy who will anchor that line for the foreseeable future. And yes, the rest of the line, it's not exactly being MacGyvered together with duct tape and bubble gum and paper clips right now, but they have had to piece it together. Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson solid at the guard spots. You got a question, obviously, about Ozzie Trapilo at left tackle. And center still has to figure itself out. Can Logan Jones win the job out of camp to start the year? But they know what they have at right tackle. And it's important that they protect Caleb Williams as much as possible if they're not going to regress. Please don't use that word too closely to Ben Johnson. If he hears it, he'll get mad. If they're going to regress this year, to stave off some of that regression by keeping Caleb Williams clean. So a big extension by the Bears, even though it wasn't a sexy skill position player name, Darnell Wright in Chicago. Next.
4.
The 0-2. Hit in the air. Deep left field. Torres back. George Lombard Jr. has entered the yard and left it.
Ryan Rocco on Yes Network. Hell of a debut for the kid, George Lombard, getting called up by the Yankees yesterday. First hit is a homer in the Bronx. He can do no wrong. Yankees ended up winning 2-0 on solo homers by Lombard and Jazz Chisholm. And maybe this staves off the Yankee fan anger for just a day or two. Mad that they didn't go out and do enough at the deadline, some people in New York. This was technically an addition right around the trade deadline. They call up Lombard, and he makes an instant impact. I said this a month and a half ago. I know you're testy. I know you're always waiting for the bottom to drop out, Yankees fans, but hang in there. You're going to the playoffs. Judge will be healthy by then. I'm knocking on wood for you right now. And you'll be good to go come playoff time. You're still going to have to get through Tampa either way. Next.
3.
3rd and 4. Steelers bring 4. Highsmith is there. Jackson got away. Now reloads and throws to Flowers downfield. He's got it for a touchdown! Mike Tirico on NBC's Sunday Night Football from Week 18 last year. I still get goosebumps when I hear Tirico calling any of the big plays from that game. It was so wild. Zay Flowers with a touchdown there halfway through the fourth quarter of that wild game that capped the 2025 NFL regular season. Zay Flowers gets paid by the Ravens. The 4th biggest number amongst wide receivers in the NFL. But look, I know I go back and forth on this. I'm not waffling. I don't want to say that. They had to keep Zay Flowers in the fold. He is their number 1 wide receiver, and the Ravens have wandered through wide receiver wilderness for years, like Paulie and Christopher through the woods of New Jersey, through the Pine Barrens. They've wandered around eating ketchup packets, hoping to finally find a wide receiver. And they have. Zay Flowers is their guy. But now here they are in a spot where they have to extend Flowers, and to extend a wide receiver, you got to pay him. So they're going to pay him top 5 wide receiver money in Baltimore, knowing that he's not a top 5 wide receiver. This is not to say Zay Flowers is not good. Zay Flowers is good, very good at times. We've been arguing about this all morning in our pre-show discussions. You can say that Zay Flowers is not a top 5, nor even a top 10, maybe not even top 15 wide receiver in the NFL, and still believe that Zay Flowers is good. So the Ravens are paying Zay Flowers for what they think he can become. They think he can become a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I don't know if a 5'9" guy, as much as you want to motion him around and try to get him free releases off the line, can be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. It's on Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson to prove that he can be. Otherwise, while I understand why they had to do it, this contract may end up going down as a massive overpayment, even given the fact that contracts are always escalating in the NFL. And another year or two, Zay Flowers may be just a top 15 wide receiver based on average annual value. But that's what he is talent-wise right now. For me and a lot of other people who look at Zay Flowers and say, I could probably rattle off 10 or 15 guys I like better than him. Can he prove to all of us detractors and doubters that he is worth being paid like a top 5 wide receiver? If he does, that includes Baltimore going deep into the playoffs, which they have to do as well, even if it is Jesse Minter's first year. Next.
2.
And the 29-year-old from Arizona, Tarek Skubal, who's won back-to-back Cy Young Awards, and over the last 3+ seasons, 45-18 with a 2.46 ERA, the best in baseball. 2-2. And a strikeout. Sinker at 99 to get Crow Armstrong. And that's how he begins his time in a Dodger uniform.
Joe Davis on Sportsnet LA. Tarek Skubal made his debut at Wrigley last night. Really didn't get any run support. Dodgers lose to the Cubs 5-1. It's their 5th loss in a row. They'll try to avoid a second consecutive sweep on the road this afternoon at Wrigley in the final game of that series. Look, it's not like the Dodgers weren't going to win every game based on trading for Tarek Skubal, and this little 5, even if it turns into a 6-game skid, they'll still be okay. They've got 37 starting pitchers waiting in the wings for when they finally get to October. That was the point of the Tarek Skubal deal, and we all knew it was going to go down like this. I know it's been almost a week since the trade happened, but I've got to get one last thing off of my chest about the Tarek Skubal deal. And I'm going to do that later in the show because, look, I'm on here every weekend on Westwood One Sports alongside Kate Constable on BetMGM Game Day. And we broke down the Skubal trade every which way it could be broken down on Sunday afternoon and Sunday morning, including the perspective of folks from LA who all had the same thing to say. Your team could have made this trade too, you know. I don't know if they could have. And I'll explain it all to you a little bit later, right around 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific here on You Better You Bet. But number 1.
Here's Robinson, right side. Nice cutback. He's gone. Can anybody catch him?
Not tonight.
McCreary chasing. Won't get there. Touchdown, Atlanta. 93 yards.
Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football on ESPN and ABC last year. He's the best running back in the game right now, Bijan Robinson. The most dynamic anyway. You get it with just the call of that one play, right? Bijan can do just about anything with the football in his hands. And he gets a massive extension, highest paid running back now in the league and in league history. 3-year, $75 million extension. And that's on the heels of, in the past month, extensions for Drake London and Kyle Pitts as well. The Falcons have identified their skill position guys that they want to ride with. The problem is, who the hell's going to get him the ball? Look, I know it's pretty simple to turn around and hand it off to Bijan and watch him do what he did in that clip there. but you still got to throw it to him occasionally. You still got to throw the ball to Drake London and Kyle Pitts. You still got to have somebody that can throw the football. And I don't know if they have anybody. It's Tua and it's Michael Penix Jr. Neither one of them looks ready for prime time. Neither one of them looks like they're going to be a franchise quarterback. And that's the biggest problem in Atlanta. Who's going to distribute the football? Oh, yeah, Jalen Walker's out for the year now, too, on the other side of the ball. That happened yesterday in Falcons training camp. Good for Bijan getting paid. Here's to the Falcons actually being able to use him, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, without necessarily having a quarterback who can get them the ball, or at least we'll see if they can. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. It is You Better You Bet, presented by our good friends at BetMGM. Make it legendary. We will talk about the Falcons with Randy McMichael of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, coming up at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, 11-year NFL vet. He was an all-SEC tight end at Georgia as well. Curious how Randy feels, not necessarily about the contract extensions, but the quarterback situation and the Jalen Walker injury. I mentioned Brooks Austin to talk college ball, coming up in about 20 minutes here on Westwood One Sports, But coming up next, on a day littered with contract extensions around the NFL, one has me wondering if the guy is going to be able to live up to the deal. I'll tell you who next here on Westwood One Sports.
3rd and 1. Fake to Henry
Did it
Jackson.
again.
Shot
They did it
downfield.
again.
Zay Flowers again. Zay Flowers inside the 20. He's going to go.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
You know, I mentioned getting goosebumps over every big moment that I hear from that final Steelers-Ravens game of last year with Mike Tirico on the call on NBC alongside Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football. That one, probably not as much goosebumps as I still remember the sinking feeling in my stomach of, oh my God, as soon as you heard Collinsworth say, "He did it again." Zay Flowers got paid, though, by the Baltimore Ravens. He's going to get paid like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. That's the contract extension that was agreed to yesterday between Flowers and the Ravens. 4 years, $140 million is the totality of the deal. Average of $35 million per season ties him with Justin Jefferson as the 4th highest paid wide receiver in the league. I get it. This is the very important qualifier we have to put in here. And this segment is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. This is the very important qualifier here. You can wonder if Zay Flowers is ever going to live up to this contract or to the billing of being a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, and not necessarily be questioning whether Zay Flowers is good or not. Zay Flowers is good, very good at times. But he's not a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Now, at the same time, I understand why the Ravens had to sign Zay Flowers. They have very little, if anything else, behind him. Isaiah likely departs for New York. And I imagine that means Zay Flowers probably catches even more balls this year. Had 77 catches his rookie year for 5 touchdowns. 74 catches 2 years ago for 4 touchdowns. 86 catches last year for another handful, 5 touchdowns. I imagine, again, with Likely gone and Mark Andrews not getting any younger, that Flowers will be as much, if not more, of a red zone option than he's ever been before. And he'll catch more passes. That's not up for debate. His numbers will probably go up. But are they going to get to the point where you unquestionably look at Zay Flowers and say, yep, that's a top 5 wide receiver? Or even top 10? Like, we've been playing this game all morning here on the show, in the chat and our pre-show meetings. How many wide receivers can you name that you'd be more comfortable with than Zay Flowers? And I can rattle off at least 15. And again, this isn't a knock against Zay Flowers. All the names I'm about to rattle off are very good wide receivers. Chase, Nakua, JSN, St. Brown, CD, the aforementioned Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Nico Collins, George Pickens, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Malik Neighbors, Tet McMillan. I'd probably put, I'm a huge Emeka Egbuka fan. I'd probably put him ahead of Zay Flowers. I know some people would argue with me on that. I'm fine with it. Devontae Adams. I mean, I just rattled off close to 15 names, if not more. Zay Flowers is a good, very good at times wide receiver, and they needed to keep him in Baltimore. But he is not a top 5 nor even top 10 wide receiver in this league, and he's going to be paid like one probably throughout the term of this contract. I get it. NFL salaries are always rising. It's not a question of whether they should or shouldn't have given him the money. Go ahead, give him the money. He's your guy. Like, I find conversations about whether guys are quote unquote worth the money teams give them or not just mind-numbing, especially in the NFL. because the cap is always rising, because there's always more revenue coming in. It's not a question of whether they're worth the money or not. They're worth what a team is willing to pay them, and the Ravens were willing to pay him $35 million a year on average. So fine, he's worth it. That's not the question. The question is, based on the value of that contract, which puts him in the top 5 in the league, does it match up with his production? And to this point, it simply doesn't. And even with a really good year, even with what could get qualified as the best year of Zay Flowers' career, let's say he has 95 catches and close to 10 touchdowns, which would be twice as many as he's had in any single season yet. I still don't think that makes him a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Might make him top 10. Again, none of this is to disparage Zay Flowers and say he's not worth the money the Ravens want to give him. He's not good. No, Zay Flowers is good. He's just, there are a dozen teams around the NFL where if you plucked him off the Ravens roster and dropped him in on that other team's depth chart, he's not wide receiver 1. And I think the importance here is that Zay Flowers has to pay off on this extension. You know, a lot of times in sports, guys get contracts or contract extensions or money based on what they've done to that point in their careers. This is a classic case of, no, we're paying you for what we think you're going to do over the next 4 years. And the Ravens clearly believe that Zay Flowers is going to assert himself as at least a top 10, if not a top 5 wide receiver over the next 4 years. They're paying him as such. So what's that got to look like? Like I said, it's got to be 90, 95 catches. It's got to be 10 touchdowns. He has, and here's the thing. I don't think Zay Flowers doesn't have that ability. You know, the clips we played this morning from that final wild game against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football in Week 18, blown coverages aside, we know that Zay Flowers is capable of blowing the lid off a defense. We know that Zay Flowers can be the go-to guy for Lamar Jackson. He just has to do it now. But the question is, even if he does it in this offense, like I said, without Likely, with Mark Andrews not getting any younger, with not a lot of depth behind him in the receiver room, does it make him a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL? And I don't think it does. And you'll see a lot of people, I've seen this reaction already to the Zay Flowers contract, say, oh, well, yeah, you know, the numbers might not be what some of these other top wide receivers in the league have put up over the last few years, but, you know, he's in an offense that relies a lot on Derrick Henry and Lamar's ability to run. And, you know, don't forget, they throw to the tight ends a lot. Okay, that's fine. If that's the case, then what makes him worth the money that he's now going to be paid, or worth being talked about, I should say, as one of the top 5, top 10 wide receivers in the league? And I think the production is going to have to take off at such a rate just this year that it's going to be hard to get there. Now, if it does, no hate to Zay Flowers. You got your bag, and if you end up backing it up, more power to you, because that means the Ravens, most likely, are where they need to be. And I've been someone who said over and over and over again this offseason that as good a coach as Jesse Minter may end up being, first year as a head coach and adjusting to that after being a coordinator is damned hard. And I think there are going to be some growing pains for Baltimore, especially on the defensive side of the ball. where they haven't been consistent at all over the last 2 years. They'll look good one week, look terrible another week, look good 1 month, look terrible another month. Hell, they looked terrible for the whole first half, of the 2024 season. So it's going to take time for Jesse Minter to adapt and adjust to being a head coach. If he does, and Zay Flowers pops off on the offensive side of the ball, it'll all be worth it. I just don't think he's that dude yet. We'll talk about everything going on in Atlanta, speaking of contract extensions and a major injury on the defensive side of the ball at the top of the hour with Randy McMichael, NFL vet, was an all SEC tight end at Georgia back in the day, 92-9 the game now. That coming up at the top of the hour. But coming up next, I don't know if I've seen anyone explain the Save College Sports Act more succinctly than Brooks Austin of the Film Guy Network. He'll join us to explain it to us like we're a bunch of 5-year-olds, and we may even talk some ball because there's no one better to talk ball with than Brooks. That's next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up top of the hour, there was good news in the ATL yesterday, but there was also bad news. We'll break it all down with Randy McMichael at 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, 11-year NFL vet, all SEC tight end at Georgia back in the day. And also, coming up around 10:20 Eastern, 7:20 Pacific here on Westwood One Sports, our very own Linnell Willingham has been on a training camp tour all over the place. We'll attempt to catch him while he's on his way to another stop to see the Commanders later today. Paul Skeens trying to get off the schneid for the Pirates later tonight against the Brewers. You can turn your baseball predictions into bigger potential payouts with today's MLB Parlay Boost token. Whether you're backing multiple game winners, stacking player props, or building the same game parlay, that MLB Parlay Boost token is going to help you get even more out of every winning ticket. Download the BetMGM app today and check it out. Please gamble responsibly. I mentioned, I don't know if there's anybody I'd rather talk to as college football camps are getting underway this week across the country than a man whose accent reminds me, I know he's not from Louisiana, but it reminds me of my family from Louisiana. The man breaks down film like no other. And he also, probably more succinctly than anyone else I've seen in the past few weeks, broke down the Save College Sports Act and has gone a little viral on social media. The great Brooks Austin of the Film Guy Network joins us now on Westwood One Sports. Morning, Brooks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, we started doing that segment about a year and a half ago of Brooks reads so you don't have to, because I found that like the younger and younger we get, the longer and longer we're into this internet era. People are just done reading, and I got into the business as a writer, and recognized pretty early on, like, dude, if you don't get on camera and get in a microphone, you might not have a job 10 years from now. That was like 5 years ago. And it feels that we've already arrived at that point. So, yeah, Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports and On3 does a tremendous job. He actually lives in Washington. His wife is a political correspondent. So he is very well versed in this world, if you will, of like actually understanding what's going on in our political system. And now our political system is actually intertwined with college athletics because the NCAA has been getting run roughshod with all these local court systems. So the people have gone to the Senate and been like, will you please help us? Will you please give us some type of universal legislation? And yeah, we have it, the Save College Sports Act. Now, whether or not it actually gets voted on, that's a whole nother ordeal. But yeah, I would be more than happy to succinctly summarize what we got going on there, because it could be relatively impactful and actually bring some sanity back to college athletics.
Yeah, and I want to talk ball with you, too, because there's nobody better at crunching film than Brooks. Check out Brooks on YouTube, the Film Guy Network. Make sure you subscribe and like. It's one of my favorite go-tos every week during college football season. We had Rich Rodriguez on a couple days ago, and it was conveniently enough just hours before the SEC and the Big Ten jumped on board with this whole thing. And he kind of put them on blast and said, well, of course, they don't want to share their money with the itty-bitty Big 12 and ACC. And this is all about sharing the money and making the system better so that everybody can make more money. Break it down for us like we're a bunch of 5-year-olds, Brooks. How can we get to a point where college football can start to make a little more sense and make more sense for us that remember what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago based on what this legislation looks like?
So I will say, no offense to Rich Rod, I think the SEC and the Big Ten had a good reason to stand foot on not pulling together TV media rights, because the viewership numbers are totally different in the Big Ten and the SEC than they are anywhere else in college football. But that's a topic for another day. Just to give you a rundown, right now, the House versus NCAA Act that passed 2 summers ago set the revenue sharing cap at $21.3 million. We've drastically exceeded that in football alone. The highest paid roster per reporting is Texas at about $48.5 million this coming up year. That cap will be raised under this new bill, Save College Sports, from $21.3 million to $48.8 million. More than doubling the amount of money you can actually give out of the revenue sharing cap. However, they are going to have much more stern NIL processes. In other words, and I said this on our show in layman's terms, pay for play is no more. You're going to be able to give them a portion of the revenue sharing cap and a larger portion of that. However, these deals that you sign outside of the revenue sharing is actually going to have to be legitimized. Okay, it's going to have to pass through whatever governing body that they have. It's going to get actually filtered through. You're not going to be able to have some local car dealership who has a multi-million-dollar owner who happens to be a big fan of your football program give your defensive tackle $800,000. Like, that's not what this is going to be moving forward. Believe it or not, that's what we have currently. Right now, we just have these massive boosters that just say, I want to give that guy $900,000 and label it name, image, and likeness. No, it is not. That is not legitimate marketing. You're not getting a return on investment on that. That's money laundering. That's money washing is what that looks like right now. That's the current stature that we have in college football. This should alleviate some of that and bring legitimacy to how we are paying athletes and at least some transparency as well. By the way, if this gets voted on, Ross Dellinger reports that it's going to get the required votes. The required votes is 60. There's rumors that they're going to be north of 80 in terms of approval on the Senate floor. It's also going to bring a one-time transfer rule back to college football, which I think would be the saving grace for this sport, because the constituents that I talk to down here in the South and around in college football, I can't tell you how many times, guys, I hear the words like, or some verbiage of, man, this isn't the college football that I grew up on. I have no idea who my football team is. Every year I wake up, we got 70 new football players. What the heck is this? This should alleviate a lot of that. There's a lot of football players that I go through where it's like Darian Mensah, for example, started at Tulane, went to Duke, now is at Miami. He's gone to 3 schools. There's a lot of athletes that go 4 over 4. They transfer to 4 different schools. They're just highest bidder every offseason. Where can I transfer and get some more money? We're going to cut that down a lot if this passes, because after you get the one free ride, and then after that, you got to sit out a year if you want to leave your ultimate program. So I think that should help some of this poaching as well, because if you've already made one move and I want to bring you onto my roster, I'm not going to do so if you've got to sit out for a year, right? The Duke and Miami thing probably wouldn't have happened under this current stature, because I'm not going to go poach Darian Mensah off Duke's roster if he's got to sit for 12 months when he gets here. I need him to play now. So they'll go find somebody who actually can play now. They're also going to implement a 5-year eligibility rule, 5 to play 5. Pretty simple. Once you turn 19, once you enroll in college, you have 5 years to play 5 years of football. No more red shirts, no more medicals, no more none of that. We're not going to have these 7-year seniors playing college football. I think that's pretty good. And college athletics in general. Also a ban on professional athletes returning to college football or returning to college athletics. This is a big thing in college basketball. Seen a lot of G Leaguers coming back to NCAA basketball. That's nonsense. I'm not here for that. Once you sign a professional contract, buddy, you have the die has been cast. It is no longer time for you to come back to college. I think it's also important for player protection purposes that they're trying to establish an agency registry. Man, we've got some absolute crooks and criminals right now representing these athletes. I'm going to put that in air quote, representing these athletes. Some of these agents are taking somewhere of like 20% cut off these kids. And God only knows how qualified these agents actually are, because there is no registry pool right now. So they're trying to establish an agent registry while also capping agents' take at 5%. I think that's good for the protection of athletes. I think if you are an ACC member, or if you're Texas Tech out there in the Big 12, this next thing that I'm about to talk about should cause major concern for you, and you should be freaking out. They're going to set caps on conference memberships at 19 member schools. Why 19? I have no idea. I would imagine it's because the Big Ten's already at 18. But it sets a cap on 19, so no super leagues, no super conferences. But more importantly, if you want to get out of your current conference and leave to another conference, you have to maintain independency for 5 years. So you have to go out and be an independent outside of a conference for 5 years before you're ever even grandfathered into the conference that you're trying to go to. So if you're Florida State, if you're Miami, if you're Clemson, if you're North Carolina, if you're Texas Tech, this is a no-go. This can't happen, because it will leave you in your conference, basically in perpetuity, because I don't know of anybody that's willing to sign up for that. Also, a Lane Kiffin rule basically makes sure that you can't leave your current employment status for a new school until the season has concluded. I think that is, good for the continuity of the sport as well. All that being said, at the end of this 4,000-word article from Ross Dellinger that I read, so you didn't have to, there's this paragraph that basically says, if this actually gets voted on, if they actually have time to vote on this, because the SEC and the Big Ten drug their feet for so long that now that we have a limited time window before the Senate takes a break in September for them to actually vote on this. And I don't know if you know, but there's like more important things in our political system to vote on, like Russian sanctions, like actual government spending bills. Like there are more things that they need to vote on before this one gets here. However, it has been very, very obvious that the president cares about this. The president wants this to be done and wants this to get done. In fact, in that article that I didn't mention in that clip you referred to, the president basically threatened, I will lambaste you. I will come out and say this is the SEC's and Big Ten's fault if y'all don't come to the table and vote on this. And I think that was a little bit of a moving point there. So, we'll see what ultimately happens. I hope it gets passed for a lot of the reasons that are in this bill. It's not a perfect one. It's not. There was no perfect solution here, but at least this is some type of solution, because I do think we need national legislation in college athletics, because right now what we have is local county court systems getting over on the NCAA with temporary restraining orders and everybody just tossing up double middle fingers to their governing body that is the NCAA right now. They're getting ran in circles in every single one of these court systems. So hopefully a national legislation body and legislation would help alleviate some of these problems.
Yeah, just to get some sort of structure put in place would be incredibly valuable to the world of college football. Brooks Austin is with us here on Westwood One Sports. I did want to talk a little bit of ball with you. The coaches poll came out yesterday. You also dropped your way too early college football playoff predictions. And Indiana is striking me as a team that people are nobody's going to pick Indiana to go like 6-6 and, barely squeak into a bowl. There's still Kurt Cignetti's team. They still got a ton of talent on the roster. But it seems to me when you see them ranked 6th overall, Brooks, but they're second in number one votes amongst the coaches, that there is a good amount of disparity on what people think of the reigning national champs.
Yeah, if I were a college football coach voting on that poll, they would have been number one for me. Just because, thinking as a coach, they are the football program most based on great coaching. Like they don't have a $48 million roster. They don't have 17 first-round draft picks projected. They are a football team that lines up and out-executes you for 4 quarters, all based on coaching, in my opinion. And they're going to get more talented as the years progress, because I think they've finally gotten people up there to understand, oh, my God, football rises all boats. Like all tides raise when football goes. Like if we get this thing humming, everything else increases. And Kirk Cignetti was very adamant last year, mentioning the fact that they have the largest alumni base in all of America. I think they have 800,000 alumnus or something like that. It's insane. So they're only going to get better. You're right. It's a very interesting thing how they come in second for number one overall votes, but end up 6th. I am one of these people that like 1 through 15 was really easy for me to rank. 16 through 35 is a smorgasbord. It is an absolute throw a dart at a board and hope you hit. So I'm not one of these people that gets outraged on the bottom half of these things. I think like from Ohio State down to BYU in that coaches poll, those 15 teams are very obviously the best 15 teams we have in college football. And then 16 through 35, you can make an argument for anybody. And that's kind of where we're at in college football. Despite the fact that all these coaches want to go to 2014 playoffs, I don't know why. I can't find 24 good teams, and I do this for a living. Yeah. So I don't know why. I don't know why they want to continue to extend this. I do know why. It's to get their foot in the door and hope that they can save their job by mentioning to their AD, hey, but I made a playoff. Yeah, coach, but you were 8-4. Who gives a dang? Get up out of here. So I don't know why we want to continue to extend this thing knowing good and dang well we can't find 24 good football teams that are worthy of a national title run. So, the coaches poll is one of these things everybody freaks out about.
Brooks, great stuff, man. Thank you for explaining it to us like we're a 5-year-old. Check out everything Brooks has this college football season on YouTube, the Film Guy Network. Appreciate you taking the time this morning, man.
No doubt, brother. Y'all be good.
Coming up, good news and bad news in the ATL yesterday. We break down everything Falcons with Randy McMichael and 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Next, here on Westwood One Sports.
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. Unbelievable! This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Training camps going on all over the country. The NFL variety have been at work for a little over a week in most cases. College variety getting started around these beautiful United States of America all week long. And we will talk plenty of training camps all day long here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. Coming up in an hour, though. I'll tell you why everybody that keeps parroting a certain line about the biggest move of the Major League Baseball trade deadline is wrong. They're just wrong. And coming up before 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific, one college football program is doing something that is just, it's going to open a can of worms if it goes well. And if it doesn't go well, I mean, I don't think anybody will be surprised, but it's got potential for disaster either way. That's coming up before 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific here on You Better You Bet. We'll also check in on all the injuries in San Francisco a little bit later with the Niners as Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game will check in. A lot to get to today here on Westwood One Sports, including both good news and bad news at Falcons camp yesterday. Randy McMichael, an 11-year NFL veteran. He was an all-SEC tight end at Georgia, now part of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, joins us now. Good morning, Randy. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm doing good. On my way, actually, to training camp as we speak.
There is something about this time of year. Everyone we check in with, for the most part, Randy, is on their way to camp or they're standing on a sideline. I don't think you can compare anything to the vibes of being at a camp in late July, early August. I don't care if it's a high school camp, a college camp, an NFL camp, and just the feeling of football coming back.
Oh, it's great, but yet having to stand out there in this heat, that's the only thing I can say, because I'm not playing. So I'm like, but no, it is fun. It is the fun time of year, as I like to say. I love all my sports. I heard you talking about the MLB trade deadline. They're acting, everybody's mad here in Atlanta about it. But, it's a fun time to get back out and watch the fans and interact with some of the players.
We'll get to some of the good news out of Atlanta yesterday in just a second. We'll also talk quarterbacks, but the bad news was that Jalen Walker, Falcons edge rusher, it's being reported has a torn ACL that happened during yesterday's practice. Just give us the Cliff's Notes version of what kind of ripple effect this could have on Atlanta's defense.
Well, I mean, there's a few players on this team that you can't afford to lose, and he was one of them, especially on defense, with the possibility of losing James Pierce for who knows how long that's going to be. And I love Jalen, obviously, Bulldog love and all those different things. Great kid. Spoke to him a couple days ago, just, wishing him luck. And for it to happen, it sucks. But, yeah, it's a big loss for that defense because he's so versatile in what he does. And you just hurt for the kid. And, I mean, whenever they stop practice and cancel the rest of practice or injury, it's serious. And yesterday we found out that it was his ACL, which is unfortunate.
They've had a fair amount of turnover, too, especially in the front seven, Randy, of that defense this offseason. Does the organization, you think, feel like they're in a better place, at least in the front seven, than they were a year ago?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think that when you look at the loss of Jalen, we don't know what's going to happen with James Pierce. Obviously, Dorless played really well last year as a young player. He's the interior defensive lineman. You lose some other things, and now you feel like, with the loss of Jalen, who's going to come in to, because they got to get somebody to rush the passer. And so, there's Bosa and Vaughn and I think Leonard Floyd, who was here last year. So I honestly don't know how they view it, because last year the Sacks, they were one of the highest pressured teams because they just couldn't get a lot of pressure with their front four.
Randy McMichael in 92.9 The Game in Atlanta with us here on Westwood One Sports. Over 125 or just about $125 million in extensions handed out by the organization over the last month. And rightfully so. I mean, we're talking Drake London, we're talking Kyle Pitts, we're talking Bijan Robinson. That is a three-headed monster of skill position guys who could make the Falcons offense one of the best in the NFL. What is the hope for this offense, knowing that the quarterback position, Randy, is still such a giant question mark?
Right there. I mean, they have, and kudos to Coach Stefanski and Ian Cunningham for, they coached them in the spring and had them a couple of days out here in training camp, but just having them in the building. But these are no-brain extensions. Drake is one of the best receivers. Bijan might be the best offensive player in the NFL. Kyle, I love Kyle. Obviously, I was surprised by the extension with him. We had him on the show last week, and I was asking the process. You signed the franchise tender. Did you expect this extension? And obviously, to start off, it was not something that he was thinking about, but the Falcons believe in him. And then they also signed Matthew Bergeron, their young left guard. So they got two of the highest paid guards in football. But when you have that skill set with Drake and Kyle and obviously Bijan, you just got to get the quarterback position right. And that's one of these things that everybody's out here now looking at the competition. Tua's finally getting to do a lot of 11-on-11 a day live. Michael's obviously still not doing it. So it's one of those things where you can have all the skill you want, but if you don't have that position right, the most important position in sports, in my opinion, it's hard to win games.
What does the difference look like to your eyes of how this offense is going to be, how they're going to spread the ball around with all this talent now that Kevin Stefanski's running the show?
Well, I think the craziest thing, and like I said, we were talking to Kyle, is that like his production is up when Drake London's out, and we're trying to figure out, can Kevin get them both where they're making such a huge impact when they're both on the field at the same time, because they're such dynamic players. But I think more than anything, the play action pass, I know they want to do a lot of under center, which last year was a lot of pistol with Michael, and then when Kurt came back, so they want to do a lot of under center. I've seen Michael. I believe Michael can do it. I just think he wasn't asked to do it, as far as what Zach Robinson wanted to do. But I just think with the play action pass with Bijan under center, play action pass, because one thing about Michael is he has to get better at throwing the ball over the middle. The thing with Tua is he's got to stay healthy. If Tua's healthy, because Michael is at a disadvantage because he's not doing 11-on-11 like Tua is today. And so we're like, is it a competition, or is it a competition when both quarterbacks can do both things? So they're in a pickle right now, in my opinion.
11-year NFL vet, once an all-SEC tight end at Georgia as well. Randy McMichael of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta is with us here on Westwood One Sports. What's the future plan? Like, I know we're in training camp now. We're so focused on this year and whether it's Tua or Michael Penix Jr. or how they might get shuttled in and out of that position based on injuries for both guys. What is the hope for the future of the quarterback position in Atlanta? Because it doesn't feel like if Penix and Tagovailoa don't put something together, either one of them this year, like they've got to quickly pivot to maximize all the money they are spending that we just talked about on Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London.
Yeah, you look at it from a standpoint. If you're the organization, you want Michael Penix to win this job. He's the younger of the two. And the thing with Tua is, if Tua has this big year, he's going to want – I don't think he'll get back to the number he was at Miami, but it'll be a significant number. Now, you look at all these contracts and you go into next year, they're going to have about $100 million in cap space next year. I think a lot of that be on defense. But when you look at it, if neither one of these guys perform, that's why I don't think all this pressure is on Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham right now, because of the simple fact that you don't have a quarterback, and it wasn't your mess. This was last regime's mess with the Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins dynamic, which nobody to this day still understands. So if it doesn't work out, Kevin's going to want his own guy, and depending on record-wise, they'll be in a position to draft one of these guys, and I'm using the air quotes as they say, generational quarterback drafts in 27.
Randy McMichael with us, talking ball, both Falcons, and of course he played for Georgia back in the day as well. We'll get to Georgia because their camp opens today. We'll get to them in a second, Randy. But just what is the hope amongst Falcons fans? You got a new coach, but an experienced head coach. You've got all these pieces in place that we just got done talking about, but you're still searching for the quarterback. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of question marks on defense, but it's a division that should be eminently winnable, right? Because the Saints are still trying to figure things out. The Panthers won the division with 8 wins last year. You have no idea what's going to happen in Tampa, how the relationship between Baker Mayfield and the front office, or Vita Vea for that matter, will affect things. What is the realistic hope for Falcons fans and the organization? Do they look at this and say, hey, if we can get to 9 wins, it's all gravy from there because that might win us the South?
I mean, hell, in the South, if you get to 8, maybe you can win it. You know, that's the crazy thing about this division. You know, we always have a saying on our show, me and Andy Bunker, is that Falcon fans have so much fan scar tissue, man. It's amazing because this team just figures out ways to not cover a kick, to slip on a play. They find the weirdest ways to win games when they have them in control. And so, I mean, obviously you have a new expectations every new season, and sitting out here at training camp talking to the fans, I mean, they're all in this position where they keep saying the same things, but we're in the South. And the South, you can win it at 8 and 9, which we saw Carolina kind of do. And then one year they won it like at 7, 8 and 1 or something like that. So this is a tricky division. You mentioned it with the Saints. Obviously the Baker Mayfield thing down in Tampa, Carolina. I mean, there's so many different things. So I just think, just win as many as you can. And then, because you're in the South, just, wherever they fall, they just fall.
Randy McMichael, 11-year NFL vet with us here on Westwood One Sports, was an all-SEC tight end at Georgia. Now he's on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Before I let you run, Randy, I do have to ask about your dogs. They bring a lot of guys back on both sides of the ball. This was one of the younger teams in the SEC last year. Gunnar Stockton's got all that experience under his belt now, though, and comes in as the starter. Georgia's pegged as another team, as another classic Kirby Georgia Bulldogs team that should be challenging not just for an SEC title, but maybe a national title. What's your quick take as they open camp today?
Well, I'm excited about this team because, like you said, we got so many guys coming back, but they're all still young. We're still one of the youngest teams in the country as far as if you look at the classification. But if you look at plays that were played by all these young players, we're right up there with all the teams in the country. So I'm very excited to see another year of Gunnar. Hopefully he's got over some of the flaws. I know I talked to Bobo and them. They're trying to keep him in the pocket longer instead of escaping, let it develop. I think they got one of the best tight end groups in America. I know there's no Brock Bauer, but I'm talking about collectively these guys can play. Obviously, the defense is going to be there. The biggest issue with Georgia is who's going to emerge at the receiver position. That is going to be the thing. Who is going to emerge as that primetime pass catcher? There's a lot of young, unproven, but talented guys. And then you always have the X factor, Kirby Smart. I mean, he's been there, done that. I think this team is very good. I think they're one of the best teams in the country. Obviously, Ohio State, they're stacked. Oregon, stacked. I mean, but Texas, stacked. But I just look at where Georgia is with that quarterback situation. I just think that they're going to be really good. And I'm not saying Georgia is going to surprise somebody because they're still Georgia, number 3 team in the country that came out yesterday. But they're going to be better than I think a lot of people anticipate.
Randy, great stuff, man. We appreciate you taking the time this morning, and we'll hope to catch up again soon.
My man, y'all take care, man. Appreciate you.
Yep, you as well. Randy McMichael of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. I don't know. I get the qualifier if you're a fan of a team in that division, the NFC South. Yeah, but it's the South. I just wonder, at what point do you throw your hands up and say, damn, it's the NFC South and we still couldn't win it? That's the part that would be hard for me. If I were a Panthers fan, a Saints fan, a Bucks fan, a Falcons fan. You go into the season saying, yeah, it's the South. As long as we get to 8, 9 wins, we're in the conversation, as we saw last year. But when you get too many years in a row strung together of, if we can just get to 8, 9 wins, are you really raising the bar for what the organization should be doing? You bring in Matt Ryan. You clearly have enough skill position players in place on offense that you should have one of the best offenses in the league if you had a quarterback. But another year has gone by and you have not figured that out. After taking a wild gamble on Michael Penix Jr. in the draft, bringing in Tua, and just hoping, crossing your fingers, knocking on wood, can somebody please play just capable quarterback for us this year so that all these big contracts we've handed out to London and Pitts and Bijan can actually pay off. That would be incredibly frustrating to be a fan in that division if you're not the team that ends up winning it by default, because it's just another year in the murky middle of, oh, well, we won 7 or 8 games, but where are we going after this? At least in New Orleans, there's a direction. They have a quarterback. They have some weapons in place. Same goes in Carolina where, okay, you're still trying to figure out if Bryce Young can be that guy or not, but at least you're putting pieces in place around him. And even in Tampa, where they're screwing the situation up with Baker, you can look at it and say, well, we could just capitalize on this year, assuming it's Baker's last year with the Bucs. In Atlanta, it's a whole lot that tells you we should be going in the right direction, but we just can't quite. We've got this beautiful car built, this high-performance sports car built, and we got nobody to drive the damn thing. That would be incredibly frustrating. Coming up at the top of the hour, everybody wants to tell you that your team could have made the Tarek Skubal trade after seeing what the Dodgers gave to the Tigers. I'll tell you why they're all wrong, especially as it relates to the Brewers and the Rays. Coming up at the top of the hour as Skubal made his debut for the Dodgers in Chicago last night. Before 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, I cannot believe a legitimate, maybe I'm stretching the definition of that word in relation to this program, but a legitimate college football program is doing something they're going to do for their first game this year. But coming up next, this man has been traveling all over to training camps from Baltimore to Pittsburgh to New York, Cleveland to Washington. And we'll catch up with him to talk about as many of those teams as we can. Our very own Linnell Willingham of Westwood One Sports joins us next here on You Better You Bet.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
My man has been putting on the miles with his training camp tour. I told you Matt Damon's Odyssey has nothing on Linnell Willingham. Late nights and weekends on Westwood One Sports. We'll talk to him in just a second. In a couple of minutes, the first college football coaches top 25 is out, and I don't think the coaches know what to do with one team. And top of the hour, one last final thought on Tarek Skubal to the Dodgers as he made his debut at Wrigley Field last night in what is LA's 5th consecutive loss. Now, we'll continue to keep you up to date on everything that's going on all over training camps around the NFL with all the contract extensions that came out yesterday. There's plenty to talk about. And a man who has been to a ton of these training camps joins us now. You can hear him late nights here on Westwood One Sports and weekend mornings as well. Linnell Willingham here with us on You Better You Bet. Linnell, it's been a morning for you, my man, trying to get to Commanders camp. Traffic in D.C. is never easy, but you have unlocked a new level of traffic hell, it sounds like, this morning.
Good morning, Chris. So I recently moved to St. Charles, Maryland, from Montgomery County, Maryland, in about December. And ever since I've gotten to St. Charles, there's this highway. It's called 210. And people just fly down this thing. And unfortunately, there's a pretty serious fatality every day on this highway. And people need to slow the hell down. The road rage, though, has gotten to a whole nother level. I've never been in a situation like this before. Pat myself on the back for even pulling it together as quickly as I did. I cut someone off in traffic. Whoop-de-doo. Everyone does it. I'm rushing. I'm moving a little bit behind. Was it safe? Debatable. Was it worth me getting beat up over potentially? Not at all. So I cut the guy off, and I do it to end up not going very far. So he gets angry at that, which I understand. He hops out of the car, Chris, tries to open my door, and then in that moment I'm like, oh no. Like, is he about to, like, am I going to get shot? Then he kicks the hell out of my door. Mind you, I'm in a rental car right now. So I'm going to have to take a picture of the door when I get out and say, hey, like, this was not me that did this. Someone tried to kill me. Chris, like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I'm honestly in real time still reacting to it because what the hell, bro?
What? You didn't know that this kind of danger would be a part of touring over half a dozen training camps in the last couple of weeks. And who knew Washington would be the place where it would get like this? Man, well, stay safe out there, Linnell. Let's talk about some of the stops you've made along the way. I want to start because you've visited this interesting cross-section of teams, right? Baltimore, the Giants, the Steelers, the Eagles, the Commanders. So teams with some pretty high expectations, like the Ravens and the Eagles, obviously. Teams with probably not as high expectations, like the Giants, for instance, and some teams in the middle. And I know you still got a trip to Ohio planned to visit the Browns later this week.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that one, buddy. I really am.
That one should be, really interesting, especially given the quarterback conversation. But let's start with those teams that have some pretty high expectations, I think, coming into the year. You got to talk, let's start here, with Zay Flowers while you were at Ravens camp. He got the big extension yesterday. I'm going to put it to you because I asked the question earlier. Zay Flowers is being paid like a top 5 wide receiver right now. Is he in that conversation for you after watching him, especially at Ravens camp, as a top 5, maybe even top 10 wide receiver in the league based on this extension?
Calling him a top 5 receiver, I don't think anybody would come out and go that far. Top 10 is even a stretch. Chris, you know it. It's probably the most oversaturated position in all the National Football League. Talking about the wide receiver spot, they're a dime a dozen. When you think about the evolution of the 7-on-7 passing game in high school football, it's translated to the college level with the quarterback play, continuing to improve. It's also translated to wide receiver. I keep saying it, Chris, when I get ready to pop out some little Linnells, they're playing corner because everyone wants to play wide receiver. But when it comes to Zay Flowers, Chris, I think in this offense in particular, he is a slider frame receiver standing at about 5'8", 5'9". He is a SOB to tackle in space, man. He makes guys miss. I love him running after the catch. In this Declan Doyle offense where there's going to be a lot more pre-snap motion, it should help him out, Chris, because he gets a lot more free releases. He's not going to get, big physical corners being able to put their hands on him and stopping him from getting out into the progression rather. So I like it. I think the Ravens obviously were paying him for what they think he's going to turn into, not for what he is right now. Even though last year was a damn good year, 86 catches, over 1,200 yards. The fumbles obviously were tough for him. Every fumble that he had, he lost it last year for Baltimore. But I think he has turned into a legitimate number one wide receiver for the Ravens. But I'll be honest, this Jacoby Lane dude, Chris, is something else. When I was out there, Lamar hit him on like a 35-yard skinny post, and he goes up and climbs the ladder and high points it over two different defenders and comes down with it. He made another ridiculous catch at practice yesterday, according to some tweets that I saw. That's the dude in their receiving core that I think is really going to potentially unlock this offense, Chris, and allow Lamar to have the best year of his pro career.
On the other side of the ball, everybody's talking about how Jesse Minter is going to dive in and immediately make this Ravens defense look what a Ravens defense is supposed to look like, unlike the last year and a half or so. A lot of going to camp, Linnell, is just the vibes, right? You try to get a feel for how teams are reacting, especially in a spot where there's a new head coach. What are the vibes like with the Ravens defense?
Yeah, they're a group that wants to put last year in the past, right? It did not look like, to your point, a traditional Ravens defense. They didn't get after the quarterback consistently. They gave up a lot of yards through the air, and it was a byproduct of injuries. They moved Adafe Owe. They had injuries in the secondary. They had obviously the big injury to Justin Madubuike. He's back and going through individual drills. I had a post that went viral, Chris, on accident. I posted Trey Hendrickson, running the hoop and doing a pass rush drill. And, I mean, he was getting roasted. People were asking, was this Drewski? People were asking, like, is he serious? Is he out of shape? Is he fat? Do not let that video color your opinion of what he's going to be for the Ravens. Him and their second-year edge, Chris, Mike Green, met at Lamar Jackson several different times throughout the practice that I was there. And obviously, they're not in pads, so it's hard to, really get a gauge on what he is. But I don't want that video to color, how America views him. I think he's going to come in and really provide some juice and pop to their pass rush. I'm excited about the man I just mentioned, though. Year number 2 of Mike Green, a guy that I was pretty high on coming out of Marshall, real legit bend off the edge. And last year, it was tough. He played like a rookie. Talking to folks, on the sideline at practice, a lot of folks, excited about what he could be in this defense. You obviously have Roquan Smith at the second level. Year number 3 or number 2, rather, of Nate Wiggins. I'm a big fan of him. Their corner out of Clemson. I think it's a good group, man. They just got to be able to rush the passer. That's the big question with the Ravens. Are they going to be able to consistently rush the passer? If they can, then I think they'll get back to their winning ways on defense.
One of the other contenders you got to visit with, and Linnell Willingham is with us. Catch him late nights and weekends on Westwood One Sports. He's on a training camp tour all over the Eastern Seaboard right now. One of the other contenders you got to check in on just a couple days ago, the Eagles. How does it look like Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts are coming together? Does it look like anything significantly different? And obviously the most important positional question is the wide receiver position. Mekhi Lemon left practice early while you were there that day on Monday, and they're trying to fit the pieces together now that Devontae Smith is the one and A.J. Brown is out.
Yeah, the number one thing that stood out offensively, Chris, is it felt like Hurts during most of the team periods was exclusively under center. And I know that is a big difference in this offense going into 2026. A big piece of last year, Chris, was, Eagles fans and players and coaches will tell you, it felt like defenses had a beat on what we were doing. And I think with Sean Mannion coming in, running this, West Coast zone run scheme, they're going to try to marry up their run and pass game concepts. You saw a lot of pre-snap motion at practice with Devontae Smith and Dontavion Wicks. It's honestly eerily similar to what is happening in Baltimore, if we're being honest, man. Just trying to, master things. And I think Jalen Hurts had everybody that I talked to said he had his best practice of training camp while I was on the sideline, so maybe I should show up more often, Chris, for his sake. But no, he hooked up with Elijah Moore on a 45-yard skinny post. You mentioned no Mekhi Lemon. This has been a guy, Chris, that's been in and out of the lineup with a hammy since the spring. So I don't know what type of impact he's going to be able to make early on in the season. The three that you saw constantly out at receiver was Devontae Smith, obviously, and then Dontavion Wicks along with Elijah Moore. They've got Hollywood Brown in the fold as well. He's somebody that's obviously a veteran and has been around the block before. But, man, the Eagles are interesting. I think this zone run scheme really fits what they have from a personnel standpoint. Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, two of the most athletic offensive tackles in the NFL. Dallas Goedert, a really good blocker at the tight end position. So with this zone blocking scheme, it's really not complicated. You either step left or you step right. And that's how you determine, what your blocking assignment is. They have the athletes up front to be able to master some of these reach blocks. And I'm getting nerdy here with some of the terminology. But in all, I think that offensive line is really going to be able to get this run game back on track. It was ranked 18th last year in the National Football League, and it was bigger. Philadelphia took a step back, man. I keep saying it, though. They've got, the widest range of success in the NFL for this year. I can see them being a 7-win team. I can see them representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. A lot of that has to do with the defense. They're long. They're fast. They got two, newly paid defensive tackles in Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I love the Reek Woolen addition coming over from the Seahawks. Cooper DeJean is one of the best defensive backs in football already as a youngster. So they're legit, man, and it should be their goal to have the best defense in football going into 2026.
He's on his way to Commanders camp this morning. He's been to Baltimore, New York, Pittsburgh, Philly, headed to Cleveland later this week as well. Linnell Willingham of Westwood One Sports with us here on You Better You Bet during his training camp tour. Let's talk about the Giants, Linnell, because there is a wide range of opinions on the Giants. Some people think they're going to be a dumpster fire with Cam Scatterbo pulling out backflips and year 2 of Jackson Dart finally getting a chance to maybe build some chemistry with Malik Neighbors. How has John Harbaugh walked in and maybe tried to steady what feels like a constantly rocking ship in New York?
Well, I feel bad for all my good guys that are on that Giants beat because it went from it being open season under Brian Daboll where they can record team drills to now you can't even have your phone out on the sideline, Chris. It is Fort Knox over in New York. They're at the Greenbrier in West Virginia for their training camp. It's just a different energy, man. John Harbaugh brings a level of professionalism to any organization, but let's be honest, he's got some pressure on him too. His inability to get that Ravens group over the hump in the postseason is something that's a stain on his resume, in my opinion. He's a special teams guy, and he had his kicker miss. Let's say them not making the playoffs last year. With the Giants, though, they're interesting, right? They're starting to already form an identity, Chris. They're big, from the offensive line to the two dudes that they have in tight end. Talking about Isaiah Likely coming from Baltimore, and then Theo Johnson, who I'm pretty high on. They have the identity of a team that wants to run the football, the DNA, rather, of a team that wants to run the football. They brought in Patrick Ricard from Baltimore. He's like a damn 6th offensive lineman. They're going to do their damnedest to try and punch you in the mouth and run the football. The question is, will this offensive line be able to hold up? They drafted C.C. Maui Noah out of Miami, and they expect him to come in and make an impact and help out this offensive line. They re-signed Jermaine Illuminor. He's somebody that was serviceable for them a year ago. I think the Giants' offense is going to be a work in progress, right? Jackson Dart going into year 2. How does he, handle this offense under Matt Nagy? I think with the Giants on that side of the football, they're going to be a team that runs it 25, 30 times per contest. I think it's going to be on Jackson Dart just being able to be a game manager and not turn the football over for this group. They're going to maximize his athleticism. I don't think in 2026 they're going to try to put too much on his plate. The receiving core is fascinating. I think a lot of people are geeked up about, Odell Beckham being there. There's some nostalgia with that. He's not guaranteed a roster spot. I think the last roster spot on the Giants comes down to 3 dudes: Braxton Berrios, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Odell Beckham Jr. Braxton Berrios has the upper hand right now because he's got special teams ability as a kick returner and a punt returner. Matt Fields, the rookie out of Notre Dame, looked big out there when I was there, but the passing game just really didn't get going. And it's a credit to the Giants' defense. I think they may have maybe the best front 7 in football, especially when you consider the speed at inside linebacker between Arvell Reese and Tremaine Edmonds. Cam Scatterbo said it when I was talking to him post-practice. It's almost intimidating doing their run install against this linebacking core because they beat you to your landmarks. And at this point in camp, there's no pads on. That's what it's about. I think the Giants are going to be frisky. The question is, to me, on the offensive side of the football, what version of Jackson Dart do you get? he started off well, but did not finish his rookie campaign with the same sizzle.
I want to ask you about Steelers camp. I've been there plenty of times in my lifetime, Linnell. It's always a hell of an environment, but it's really different this year. That is the one word we keep coming back to, those of us who've kept an eye on the Steelers so far in this training camp, not just because it's the first year without Mike Tomlin in nearly 2 decades, but you've got another year of Rodgers. You've got the McCarthy-Rodgers dynamic. I mentioned vibes earlier when we were talking about the Ravens defense. What were the vibes around the Steelers offense that you noticed during your stop in Latrobe?
I think the DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers connection already in midseason form. They hooked up early and often during the team periods, during the 7-on-7. So that was, good to see if you're a Steelers fan. I thought the way I would describe the practice is a little bit lax, if I'm being honest. They were very loose to start. I don't know if you picked up on that when you were out there. Now, I have nothing else to go off of, Chris, because I've never been to Steelers practice. But, in D.C., the Commanders a lot of the time get some flack for, how loose and lax their practices were last year during camp. It reminded me of that. As the practice got deeper and deeper, you saw the intensity ratchet up. I spent a lot of time with the edge rush trio of Alex Highsmith, Herbig, and TJ Watt. There's a reason those dudes are, 3 of the best pass rushers in football. The attention to detail that they practiced with was awesome. Aaron Rodgers, though, man, look, I don't know how you feel about him, Chris. I think people allow their feelings about Rodgers, the person, to influence how they evaluate Rodgers, the quarterback. And when you think about the age and just where he's at in his career, I thought last year was an interesting year for him, man. I don't think it was as bad as people make it seem. I think there is a little bit of logic to bringing him back, even though I wasn't a fan of the move myself. Adding Michael Pittman and Jeremy Bernard, though, Chris, I think really changes the outlook of this receiving core and this offense as a whole. Their biggest Achilles heel last year is they just could not generate explosive plays. For whatever reason, they tried to be this horizontal offense when they didn't have, the personnel in terms of having guys that can run after the catch and break tackles. So I think the football is going to get pushed down the field a lot more. You saw that when I was at practice. He hooked up with DK Metcalf on a deep shot. He hooked up with Michael Pittman on a deep shot. So I'm interested to see how it looks. The Rico Dowdle addition is interesting too, Chris. He brings, a different flavor to that offense, right? Jalen Warren, a lot of respect for that dude, man. Really good pass protector, can make plays out of the backfield as a receiver, and then he's tough enough to run in between the tackles. But I think Dowdle provides that hammer impact and that hammer approach that they were missing. The highlight of the day, and what shows you, Rodgers still has it. He had a ball, Chris, to Pat Freiermuth, where Patrick Queen's it's just smothered all over him on the inside, and Rodgers puts it where only Freiermuth can get it, and he comes up with a big-time touchdown. So I think the arm talent for Rodgers for damn sure is still there. They just got to find ways to protect him long enough to allow him to get the football out to the weapons.
One more quick one for you, Linnell, because we only got about 30 seconds here. But we both mentioned the Browns earlier. You're going to be headed to Cleveland later this week. Interesting because they've got a talented roster. They just have no idea what they have at quarterback.
Chris, I'm glad we're on the same page with that. I said something last night on my show that got me sent into the ether. I think Shador Sanders, if he wins this job, has the ability to give the Browns top 16, top 17 quarterback play in the NFL. Andrew Berry and company did as good a job as anybody in terms of revamping their supporting cast. You brought in the top guard via free agency and Zion Johnson from the Chargers. I love drafting Spencer Fano. Dawan Jones is someone that I was high on at tackle. I love the receiving core with Boston and KC Concepcion, Isaiah Bond coming back a year older, Harold Fanning coming back a year older. When Shador had pieces at Colorado, guys, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Don't let your personal feelings about him in the perfect time and stuff and all that, don't let that distract you. He stood in that pocket and made big-time throws, took it on his chin. It was pinpoint accurate. So I think Shador, if given the time to throw the football and given the weapons which he now has, I think he'll have some success.
Great stuff, Linnell. We appreciate you taking the time while you're working your way from camp to camp. It was awesome to catch up with you, my friend. And we'll keep an eye at Nell_BTP on social media to keep up to date on Linnell's training camp tour. Thanks again, man. Wow, we wrapped that up just in time to lose Linnell's connection. Linnell Willingham, catch him. We'll see you, Linnell. Pop back in at the end. Catch him tonight at 11 Eastern on Westwood One Sports.
every Monday through Wednesday, late nights on Westwood One, and of course Saturdays and Sunday mornings from 8 to 11 a.m. We appreciate him checking in during what has been this 2-week-long tour of training camps around the NFL. Coming up with the release yesterday of the preseason coaches top 25 in college football, it's clear people, I don't think, have any idea what to make of one team in particular. I'll tell you who, plus some instant overreactions to those rankings next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Every once in a while, you have to acknowledge that somebody has no idea what to do with something. And I think college football coaches are evidence of that. We'll get to it in a second. And one program in particular really might have no idea what to do with their offense. We'll get to that in a second as well. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Lots of baseball. We are headed down the stretch run now that the deadline is in the rearview mirror. Some final thoughts on Scooble to the Dodgers at the top of the hour as he made his debut at Wrigley against the Cubs last night. But you can turn your baseball predictions into bigger potential payouts right now inside that BetMGM app. Go download it if you haven't yet. Get an MLB Parlay Boost token, whether you're backing multiple game winners, stacking player props, or building a same-game parlay. That MLB Parlay Boost token inside your BetMGM app is going to help you get even more out of every winning ticket. Make it legendary. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. Do have to acknowledge, by the way, Linnell Willingham pulling off an epic 20 minutes on the phone with us while driving across one of the most congested metro areas in the United States, crossing Washington, D.C. to get to Commanders practice in time while talking to us. Check out Linnell late nights and weekends here on Westwood One Sports as he continues his training camp tour. We'll get to the college football program that I think it might have some issues with something they're doing, but I don't think anybody knows what to do with Indiana quite yet. We mentioned they're sixth in the coaches poll that just came out, the preseason top 25, but they got the second most number one votes behind only Ohio State. And the schedule isn't exactly murderer's row. They do get Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back, including a trip to Ann Arbor in the middle of October. And they do get USC, but that's at home in mid-November. For me, it all comes down to Josh Hoover. If Josh Hoover can play anywhere close to the way Fernando Mendoza played last year, then I think Indiana's got a shot to win the Big Ten title and get a bye in the playoff and maybe repeat as champs even. But I think that's a big question mark from Hoover, who has looked great in glimpses during his college career, but has also looked really shaky and inconsistent at times as well. So we'll see where it goes, but I find it interesting that coaches didn't quite know what to do with Indiana. Some of them had them so low that it dropped their ranking all the way to 6. Some of them, a great number of them, voted them number 1. Very interesting with camps opening around college football today all over the United States. This is wild to me. The University of Akron football team is letting a season ticket holder design the opening drive of their home opener against Robert Morris University. Now, Akron is not a juggernaut. They have good years in the MAC. They have down years in the MAC. Joe Moorhead, their head coach, though, allowing a season ticket holder to be the offensive coordinator of the game. And by the way, season tickets to the Akron Zips, our crack research team here at You Better You Bet has found out, are $75. So you could just go buy Zips season tickets and get yourself entered for the possibility of working with Zips head coach Joe Moorhead to help design the first drive of the game. This is a real thing that they're doing, giving a season ticket holder the opportunity to help script the opening drive of Akron's home opener against Robert Morris. I don't know what I'd do. Like, would I try to play it cool and, do the conservative football guy thing and, mix in a couple run plays? Or would I just go full on 4 verts from College Football 25 every single play? I mean, it would be a short drive maybe in that instance. But either way, could you imagine an SEC program or a Big Ten program doing this? Or really any major conference program doing this? Some Akron season ticket holder is going to be selected at random from eligible entrants, they say, to sit down with head coach Joe Moorhead and help design the first drive of the game. Now, look, Robert Morris is a Northeast Conference team. They are FCS, not FBS. So Akron should be able to handle them in the home opener, even if the first drive is a disaster. But what if it goes really well? What if it's like a 10-play march down the field and they score and everybody turns, I don't know, apologies to the offensive coordinator at Akron. I don't know your name. But somebody turns to the Akron offensive coordinator and goes, hey, you're fired. They got the job now. Either way, that's going to be appointment viewing. I got to find out when Akron's opener is now so I can sit down and see how well or how horrible that first drive goes. Coming up, I've got to get this off my chest because I think everyone in LA is wrong with something they're saying about the Tarek Skubal trade. I'll tell you what it is next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And here it is. Final hour of the show here on Westwood One Sports, the Power Hour on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. Coming up in 20 minutes, another wide receiver injury in San Francisco. Are you kidding me? Do they have any warm bodies left at that position? We'll talk to Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game out in the Bay Area in just a few moments. And with Tarek Skubal making his first start as a Dodger last night, we know it certainly isn't going to be his last. He's going to be in LA for a long time. The question is, who knew that was the plan before the Tigers traded him? And why does the answer make his trade, in my opinion, and the response to it from those in LA, a bunch of BS? We'll get to that in just a second. Before the end of the show, our 3 stars of the day. And somebody I want to keep an eye on starting tomorrow night, who I've been a bigger fan of than most and may start to run with an opportunity, even if it's the NFL preseason. That's all on the way here in the final hour of You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Thanks to all of our affiliates nationwide and to each and every one of you for joining us. You could do so on the phone as well at 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910, always live inside the Westwood One Sports app, as well as the Odyssey app, AUDACY, and on SiriusXM Channel 375. Thank you to you wherever you're listening. On YouTube as well. You can watch the show, youtube.com/@thekostos, TheKostos. Chris Mack in for Nick today. And Tarek Skubal didn't pitch poorly last night. Wasn't lights out either. Struck out 6 over 6 innings. Didn't get the win because, well, the Dodgers didn't win. A 5th loss in a row, 5-1 to the Cubs at Wrigley Field, as the offense has scuffled the last couple of days. The Dodgers are going to be fine. Look, the Dodgers aren't going to win every game from here on out. They're not going to lose every game. The Dodgers are going to continue to be just fine. Skubal wasn't acquired for the next 2 months. He was acquired for, well, the month of October. So there's no reason to worry if you're a Dodgers fan about what's going to happen down the stretch here. Your spot is secure, maybe positioning-wise, right? Making sure you've got the best record in the National League, or at least one of the top 2 records in the National League, so you don't have to play in the wild card round. That's about all that's left to accomplish for the Dodgers in the regular season. Again, the Skubal trade wasn't about the regular season. It was about October. But one thing I'm growing exceedingly tired of is an assertion that a lot of people in LA are making. And on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon here on Westwood One Sports, I co-host BetMGM Game Day with Kate Constable. And we talked a ton about the Skubal deal because it happened over the weekend, obviously. And we talked to people, plenty of people from LA, including Bill Shaken of the LA Times, Katie Wu, who covers the Dodgers for The Athletic. And almost to a person, they all said the same thing. Hey, and I've seen this a lot on social media since the Skubal trade went down. Hey, your team could have made this deal. Oh, Brewers fans, Rays fans, you're mad that you didn't get Skubal. Your team could have made this deal. No, they couldn't have. And I'll tell you why. Because the key difference in this trade was that the Dodgers had the advantage of knowing ahead of time that Skubal wants to be in LA long term. And that regardless of what his contract demands may be in the offseason, they'll be able to meet them because they're the Dodgers and they have the money to meet those demands. Now, collective bargaining negotiations and a possible lockout, and who knows whether we'll have baseball next summer and what the future financial landscape of the game looks like aside, Tarek Skubal is going to be a Dodger beyond just the next 2.5, 3 months.
It's going to be a Dodger long term. And the Dodgers knew that. And the Tigers knew it. Everybody in baseball knew it. Everybody knew that Skubal wants to be a Dodger long term. And that in and of itself becomes the problem. Because everyone knew that the Dodgers were not getting a rental. The Dodgers were getting a frontline starting pitcher and a 2-time Cy Young Award winner for the foreseeable future, not just for the next 2.5 months. In Milwaukee and Tampa, it wasn't a matter of dealing for a guy that you knew you were going to be able to sign long term because you knew you weren't going to be able to do it. You knew you were only getting Skubal if you got him for the next 2.5 months. And that was it. So naturally, you wouldn't be willing to give up as much. And look, I can find some fault in the Brewers front office for not going all in on this year, a year where adding Skubal would have given them, I think, not just a legitimate chance to beat the Dodgers if they meet them in the NLCS, but I think, at least in my mind, would have made them the favorite. Honestly, I would have taken the Brewers to beat the Dodgers in the NLCS had they added Skubal. And I think it was a key move that, with how deep the Milwaukee system is, it's not my team though, I would have given them the top prospects they were looking for. I would have given them a better deal than the Dodgers ended up giving them. But from the perspective of someone in the Brewers or the Rays or any other front office in baseball that considered itself in the Skubal sweepstakes, you had to look at it from the perspective of, well, he's not going to be here next year or beyond. He's going to be in LA. So we have to consider what we're willing to give up for 2 months of Tarik Skubal. Whereas in LA, they could look at it and say, we're acquiring a long-term, front-of-the-line starting pitcher. So that changes the dynamics around the whole deal. And that's why when people tell you, your team could have done it, they just don't have the guts. I saw Ken Rosenthal allude to some teams who were in the Skubal sweepstakes but didn't end up winning, obviously, over the weekend and say, they've got to be more aggressive. Here's the problem, Ken. Because of the current financial system in Major League Baseball, let's say the Brewers or the Rays give up 3 of their top 15 prospects to get Skubal for 2 months. It depletes their prospect pipeline. And the primary way teams in markets the size of Milwaukee and Tampa right now rebuild their roster every year is through their prospect pipeline. They can't go out and sign massive free agents. They can't give out giant deferred contracts. I guess they could, but they don't know what that would do to their franchise and their organization financially years down the line. Because we don't live in a world with a cap and a floor. If you want to criticize the Marlins and the A's and the Pirates and any other team in a quote-unquote small market who doesn't spend as much as they could and should, I'm on board with that. That's why we need a floor to go with the cap in Major League Baseball. But the Brewers and the Rays are 2 of the teams that try to do it the right way, in my opinion. They know they can't break the bank, but they're willing to spend a little bit more in years where they know they're close. But they can't spend $350, $400 million, not even in 1 year, let alone multiple years, to go out and buy up the best players in the game. They've got to cultivate those players. The Dodgers cultivate players, Chris. Yes, they do. And you know what? They don't care if those players ever make it to their major league roster. You know why? Because they can go out and buy some free agents. So combine the financial disparity with the advantage the Dodgers had in knowing that they weren't trading for 2 months of Skubal. They were trading for multiple years of Skubal. And it all adds up to the fact that no, No, Milwaukee and Tampa could not have made the same deal that LA made for Skubal because they weren't playing on a level playing field. Not just financially, but in the return. The return wasn't just Skubal in a silo. It was the Dodgers getting Skubal for multiple years, and the Brewers or the Rays or anyone else that would have been involved getting Skubal for a couple of months. And Skubal and his agents and his representatives and everyone else in baseball knew that going in. It's why everyone pretty much looked at it as a fait accompli that Skubal was going to LA, because that's where he wanted to go. So Skubal got what he wanted. The Dodgers got what they wanted. And yet everyone in LA is saying, well, your team could have done that. No, they couldn't have. Because they weren't working within the same set of parameters. Now, since I've gotten that off my chest, can I also address what I think is an odd dynamic amongst baseball fans now that Skubal is in LA? I have seen, and I am on plenty of group chats with friends who are hardcore baseball fans. I have a friend who has like 5 fantasy baseball teams, and he's texting me about guys at AAA for other organizations. And I'm like, dude, I have no idea who you're talking about. I'm sorry. I appreciate the fact that you love it that much. I ain't there. But these people are saying, man, I can't wait to see someone get the Dodgers in October. Man, I'd love to see a Tampa-Milwaukee World Series. And I'll tell you right now, that's the last thing I want as a baseball fan. Look, would it be cool to have the Rays and the Brewers meet in the World Series? Yes. Would I get just the slightest little giggle at the Dodgers doing everything they've done and not even getting back to the World Series? Yes. Schadenfreude is a very strong emotion. But I'll tell you what I'm actually rooting for. And not rooting for like I got my blue and white pom-poms out. But rooting for in that I think it's what's best for the business of baseball. I want the Dodgers to go on an absolute tear. I want them to rip baseball to shreds down the stretch and then get to October and win 11 straight games, 10-0. I want the Dodgers to be an absolute behemoth in October and to crush everyone in their path so that we can all wake up in November, December, January and say, we told you so. We told you this is what was going to happen. We told you that if you continued to let the Dodgers run roughshod both financially over baseball and in getting to do whatever they want in acquiring Tarek Skubal, we told you this was going to happen. It is not a level playing field. Because what will happen if we don't get the Dodgers winning a 3rd consecutive World Series and we do get that magical matchup between, say, I don't know, Tampa and Milwaukee, or, I don't know, the White Sox go on a magical run. Sorry, Kenny. Yeah, that'd be a fun story. But no, I want the Yankees. I want the Dodgers. I want the 2 big money teams, or 2 of the big money teams, including the biggest. I want them there at the end of October so that agents and players and people around baseball can't go, see, Tampa and Milwaukee made it. Baseball's just fine. Because baseball isn't fine. It's not. Even at the trade deadline, the crown jewel of the trade deadline gets to dictate where he's going to go. And the team that wants him gets to pay less than they should have in prospect return for that player because everyone knows that's where he wants to go long term. And the quote-unquote little guys in Milwaukee and Tampa get edged out of the conversation, elbowed out the door, because they know that player wants nothing to do with staying there beyond the end of October. And financially, they probably couldn't afford it anyway, even if he did want to stay there. It's time to fix Major League Baseball and install a cap, install a floor, and finally remedy the financial issues that have created such disparity. And if, say, Tampa and Milwaukee end up in the World Series, it's going to be a bullet point against everything I've just said. No. Give me the Dodgers running roughshod over baseball in October so we can all say, see? We told you. Coming up, maybe there's something to this insane electrical substation theory because the 49ers just cannot stay healthy. We'll get the latest from San Francisco with Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game next here on Westwood One Sports.
The 49ers brought back.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Let it play, Laura. Let it play. Sorry. Proper due respect to the most underrated band of the 90s, Stone Temple Pilots. Yes. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports. I might be buying into just a wild internet rabbit hole out in California. And we'll talk to Sterling Bennett about it in just a moment. Real quick, props to, his name's Jeff Gutt. He is the now lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots. I saw those guys in concert probably like a month and a half ago. Dude is like a Scott Weiland 2.0 in the way he sings, the way he moves on stage. So RIP Scott Weiland, one of the best to ever do it. But if you get a chance to see Stone Temple Pilots when they're out on tour and in your part of the world, go see them, because it's almost exactly like seeing them when they were at their peak in the 90s. Anyway, before we wrap up, I might be unusually excited for a preseason football game. Not just because it's the return of football. Okay, mostly because it's the return of football, but because somebody playing in this game, getting an opportunity in this game, I'm a bigger fan of maybe than anybody else around that isn't a member of his family. That's all on the way here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. But I may be buying into the wild electrical substation theory. You've seen it out there on the internet. There's an electrical substation right next to the 49ers practice facility in Santa Clara. And people have been coming up with ideas about why the Niners are always injured. And, maybe it has something to do with the substation. I laughed at it the first time I read it. And then I continued to chuckle every time I would see it pop up in my feed again. But maybe there's something to this. Now Mike Evans is hurt too. I don't know if there are any able-bodied wide receivers left on the Niners roster. Here to talk about all of it from 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. Also the host of 49ers Access. Check it out on YouTube. Sterling Bennett with us here on Westwood One Sports. Morning, Sterling. How are you?
Chris, I'm doing great, and I think you, like myself, would feel a lot better if that substation was out of there, because that thing is terrifying to look at every single day at practice.
It's not just the foreboding nature of it. It's like, man, maybe these wild people crawling down rabbit holes on the internet have a point. Or maybe it's just the Niners have just been snake bitten by injuries, but Mike Evans didn't finish practice yesterday either, and now this is Evans. This is obviously Ricky Pearsall, who's out for the year. This is Stribling, who's been dinged up. Christian Kirk, who's been fighting a hammy, I think, for the last week or so. They had to bring in Deebo Samuel. Are there any warm bodies left at that position right now for the Niners?
I'd like to say yes, but as of this morning, they just signed Hodge from the Falcons, so it seems like they even believe that we got to get some more guys in this room because guys are dropping like flies. The entire edge rushing group is essentially a wasteland of guys on the sideline doing work. It's not just wide receivers, Chris. This entire roster is seemingly hanging on by a thread, trying to make it through day 6 of training camp.
This is wild. Sterling Bennett on 95.7 The Game in San Francisco with us here on Westwood One Sports. Because like you said, it's not just the receiver group. It's all over the roster. I didn't even mention George Kittle, too, who no idea when he'll be back. And then you've got the Kyle Shanahan thing on top of it. I know Shanahan was back at practice the last couple of days, was even standing behind the offense for some of the drills yesterday, giving some vocal feedback. What's been more jarring maybe to the atmosphere at Niners camp? All of these injuries or just the sort of muted absence of Kyle Shanahan?
Well, in a weird way, the injuries have kind of been hand in hand with the San Francisco 49ers. Every year, it feels like half the team's not playing because of some type of ailment. So injuries are a very common thing, but there has been a constant throughout the injuries. That is the presence of Kyle Shanahan, who's always hands-on during practice. I've been there when he's yelling at quarterbacks and getting in tight ends' faces simply because he wants the best from his guys. And Now you're seeing a much more laid-back atmosphere that's led by players trying to ramp up their teammates. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Christian McCaffrey getting into scuffles. Colton McKivitz, the right tackle, was thrown to the ground a couple days ago by Dre Greenlaw. So the coaching staff has certainly taken a step back when it comes to the action, but the players have almost taken up the sword in their honor. But you're right, Chris, not seeing Kyle Shanahan back there on the walkie-talkie, on the radio, calling plays, getting involved in the huddles and breakdowns. It has been a very, I would say uncomfortable, but it's been a rather unpleasant sight for a team that is so banged up and needs some leadership out of their coaching staff right now.
I mentioned the Evans injury that kept him out of the remainder of practice yesterday, but it is being reported that it's not especially serious. That being said, he should be back sooner rather than later, Mike Evans, and was able to work through the first week or so of camp with Brock Purdy. What are you seeing between those two that might be a positive indicator for Niners fans that are worried sick over the pass game due to all the injuries? Are Purdy and Evans coming together fairly well over the first week?
You know, in 2023, when we saw Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk have that amazing connection where Ayuk was nearly an all-pro player and you saw the growth of what was supposed to be the next great quarterback-receiver tandem in San Francisco of two young, budding stars. Obviously, for a lot of reasons, that's no longer the future. But I think we have seen through a couple of practices that Brock Purdy and Mike Evans have it. Now, does that translate to the NFL regular season? Obviously, time will tell. And if Evans can't stay healthy, then, so what? But through 4 or 5 days of practice, we have seen Brock Purdy and Mike Evans connect on multiple deep balls towards the sideline, over the middle. Outside of rookie Dejon Stribling, Evans has been Purdy's favorite target. He gives him a chance to go up and get the football, and really, kind of like how Baker Mayfield did the last couple of years in Tampa Bay, just gives his Hall of Fame wide receiver a chance to catch the football. And I think for Niner fans, you see that and hear that after having to watch Kendrick Bourne and a hindered Juwan Jennings and an injured Ricky Pearsall and Malik Turner take snaps in the playoff game in Philadelphia, that is a sight for sore eyes.
Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco also hosts 49ers Access. Check it out, YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, giving us some insight on what's going on in Niners camp with all the injuries. You brought up Brandon Ayuk and that whole saga. What has the response to that been, or has it left a residue amongst the guys in the locker room?
The Ayuk situation doesn't seem to be an issue between the players in the locker room. You haven't heard people really address it besides George Kittle here and there, but even that, it was more so of a hands-off approach. I'm not going to get too involved in it. No one's brought it up to any of the players in press conferences. So it does seem like San Francisco said, they're going to focus on the guys in the building on their roster. The players taking the exact same approach. They are not even thinking of Brandon Ayuk. It is, full force ahead. We're thinking of preseason, week 1, getting ready for the regular season. And, shockingly, I think when we all saw the events of the offseason unfold and Ayuk's antics on social media, the voided guarantee stuff, there was some fear that if he shows up, like, what's his next step going to be? He does seem a little wild and uncontrollable right now. He's the wild card, right? That's not been the case whatsoever. He's not been around. No one's talking about him. And for a player that wants to be the talk of the town to get released, no one's talking about him.
Sterling, you mentioned how the injuries have not just been in the receiving corps. They've filtered out all over the roster. So with that being said, this was already not a young roster, not a young defense. Some of the biggest cogs in the machine are Greenlaw, Warner, Bosa, aging players who may be past their prime. With all of that said, is there reason to believe that there's enough left in the tank from each of these guys when and if they're healthy that this team's defense can hang against Seattle and the Rams?
Wow, that's a loaded question because the Seattle defense is really good, and the Rams made a lot of phenomenal acquisitions during the offseason, Myles Garrett obviously being the big one. But, San Francisco believes that with a healthy Nick Bosa, a healthy Mike Williams and company, that they can play against anybody. Now, I think we all know that when you're on your third torn ACL recovery like Nick Bosa is, you're probably not going to be a 12.5, 13.5 sack player each and every season. But I think San Francisco believes if they can get more than 20 sacks, which they had last year, was one of the worst in all football, they're going to find more production from the pass rush. The good thing is you are seeing young players step up. Nick Martin, a linebacker, looks like he belongs now in year 2 after an injury-shortened season as a rookie last year. You're seeing guys like this year's third-round draft pick, Romello Height, flash a lot in camp, even beat Trent Williams a couple of days ago on 1 rep. So they're older. I understand that. But this team has poured a lot of draft prospects into this roster the last 2 seasons. I think about 18 players are still on the roster over the last 2 drafts, a lot of them being on defense. So they're older, sure. But there's a lot of young guys chomping at the bit, trying to get some playing time. And I think if those older guys do miss some time, you're going to see some surprises this year in San Francisco.
Yeah, you mentioned the young guys. A lot of those are scattered across the secondary, too, which isn't as old as the front 7. Which of these young guys, and you don't have to limit it to the secondary, but maybe start there, which of these young guys, whether it be this year's draft picks or from the last couple of years, are you looking at and saying, okay, when we really get going here, we're halfway through the season and people are once again talking about the Niners defense, these will be the names that are new and added to the list of the veterans that we mentioned earlier, the future Greenlaws, Warners, and Bosas?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't really, mention any of the safeties in that room. I can't say Jair Brown or Marquis Siegel, Malik Mustafa. Mustafa is currently injured, and Brown and Siegel have been, replacement level to some degree in training camp so far. But I think one player that has taken major steps forward under Raheem Morris in a very short time is third-year cornerback Renardo Green. He was drafted to be the Tavarius Ward replacement after this team lost the Super Bowl in 2023. And it's been an up and down 2 seasons, right? A solid rookie year, gave you some promise. Last year he was on the sideline fighting with Kyle Shanahan in a playoff game in Seattle. There were some signs of this may not work out for him, but in a very short time under Raheem Morris, he looks like an entirely new player. He looks like that bigger-bodied man coverage cornerback this team desperately needs in a Raheem Morris defense. And I think while you talk about Ricky Pearsall being out, was a big year 3 for him, he'll miss the entire season. That year's second-round draft pick, Renardo Green, is taking strides to become, I believe, a starting and maybe the best cornerback on this roster if everything pans out in his favor.
Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco with us here on Westwood One Sports. I touched on Kittle earlier. What is the timeline on Kittle? Because we know how important he is to this offense.
Is it fair to say that no one really knows? George Kittle says he wants to be out there in Australia week 1. I think the Niners and I think most of their fans would like them to err on the side of caution and say, let's not rush back. You are all-pro, future Hall of Fame tight end and risk further injury, especially after a 15-plus hour flight to Australia. So my assumption, and that's all it is that he'll be probably on the PUP list to begin the year, miss the first 4 games, give him an extra month to recover. But knowing George, knowing how less severe the injury was than we initially thought, he's going to push for week 1, and we'll see what happens then.
Sterling, looking at the schedule, you mentioned the opener, obviously, in Australia against the Rams, but you look over the course of the first 7 weeks, a well-placed bye in week 8, near the middle of the schedule, and games, against the Falcons, the Commanders. Weeks 2 and 3 are both at home against the Dolphins and the Cardinals. Is there a hope that if this team can get off to a 4-3, 5-2 start, they can be in the conversation with the Rams and the Seahawks for the division down the stretch? Or is this just a hope, hey, let's get in as the wild cards and let's see how the chips fall from that point?
I don't think the Niners or their brass really believes in the thought of let's shoot for a wild card, right? They believe that they beat Seattle once out of 3 times last year when fully healthy. They beat the Rams when they weren't fully healthy last year, and you can say that's fool's gold, and to some degree I wouldn't disagree with you or anybody that says that. But they believe they improved the roster in a lot of different ways, and I think they have for the most part, but we've mentioned injuries being a major factor already. That's probably the one hindrance into their success in 2026. But San Francisco's a team that last year was banged up everywhere, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champions, in the divisional round, the wild card round. And they were right there neck and neck in Week 18 against Seattle, fighting for the division. So, we can say, they're the third best team in the division. They're behind Seattle, behind the Rams. We know the NFL's crazy. Anything can happen any given Sunday. And this Niners team has proven over the last couple of years they can start 3-5. They can start, 4-4. They can be banged up everywhere, and they can still find a way to at least be in the conversation at the end of the year. So they're probably a wild card team if I was to predict the season as an outcome, but I think they believe they are good enough to push even the best teams in their own division and conference.
Sterling, great stuff. We appreciate everything this morning, all your insight on what's going on in a banged-up 49ers camp, and we'll hope to catch up again soon.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sterling Bennett of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, and check out 49ers Access as well, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's just astounding to see one team take so many hits early in camp, whether you're talking about the Shanahan auto accident and him missing the beginning of camp, or all of the receiver injuries or the other injuries scattered across the roster. I get what Sterling's saying. Like, no team sets their goal as, hey, let's just be a wild card. At least I don't think most teams do. But the Niners, I think, like I said, a couple of spots after they get back from Australia for wins at home against Miami and Arizona. But while the schedule isn't that daunting through the first half, and there are soft spots throughout, that's the benefit of having a third-place schedule, I can't see them competing with the Rams or the Seahawks in this division. Not to win the division anyway. Could they be a wild card? Maybe, but it feels like there's just so much working against them right now. They are climbing uphill in both the NFC West and what will eventually be the NFC wildcard picture. Coming up next, there is one guy that I like probably more than anybody else. Is it foolish of me to like this guy? Maybe. But I like this guy, even though nobody else seems to. And the reviews on him coming out of training camp have been very, very positive, and we'll get to see him in action soon. We'll talk about that and get you our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day before we wrap up here on You Better You Bet. It's Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I hesitate to do this, but I've been burned so many times. Paul Skeens and the Pirates are dogs tonight in Milwaukee. I shouldn't. He burned me on Friday. I was all over Skeens continuing his bounce back. Nope, didn't happen. I don't know if I can, even as a dog, Pirates plus 110 at the Brewers tonight with Skeens on the mound. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can. I've just been burned too many times. Plus, they're going up against Kyle Harrison, who absolutely dominated them back in April when he started against the Pirates. I think 12 Ks and like 6 innings of one hit ball, something wild. So I don't think I can go near that one. I'll tell you what I am betting on. Although, if you want to bet baseball, you can turn your baseball predictions into bigger potential payouts inside the BetMGM app with today's MLB Parlay Boost token. Whether you're backing multiple game winners, stacking player props, or building a same-game parlay, your MLB Parlay Boost token is going to help you get even more out of every winning ticket inside the BetMGM app. Please gamble responsibly. I'll tell you what I am going to bet on. It's tomorrow night. Football. I don't care if it's preseason football. I don't care if it's the Cardinals and the Panthers. I don't care if it's the Hall of Fame game. Did they ever fix the terrible turf there in Canton? I think they did a couple years ago. I don't care if it's Kenny Pickett against Carson Beck. In fact, I should take that back. I do care that it's Kenny Pickett against Carson Beck because I'm betting the Cardinals. Plus 105, I think it is, at BetMGM. No, minus 105. Apologies. Whatever. It's about an even money bet on the money line. Arizona against Carolina tomorrow in the Hall of Fame game because I am more confident in Carson Beck than I think anyone else in the world without the last name Beck. I am a Carson Beck believer. Now, I'm going to temper that thought because believing in Carson Beck doesn't mean I think Carson Beck is going to go out and be offensive rookie of the year. It is 22-1 at BetMGM. It doesn't mean I think Carson Beck is going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But the reviews at camp, they have been very good. And I just think Beck is the perfect game manager for an offense with this number of weapons, with this system. So I am a Carson Beck believer. You can laugh at me if you want. And even though it's just a preseason game, just the Hall of Fame game, I'm taking Arizona tomorrow night against Carolina. Beck getting the start against Mr. Little Hands, Kenny Pickett. So a couple bets for you. And again, not telling you to bet it because I haven't bet it myself, so I wouldn't tell you to do it if I haven't done it. But Carson Beck is 22-1 at BetMGM, and if you shop around, there are bigger numbers out there for Carson Beck Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm not telling you to do it. Relax. I'm just saying, if you're one of the few people out there that may believe in Carson Beck even more than I do, it's not a crazy thought. Okay, maybe it's crazy. But if you can get it at like 30-1 somewhere, maybe it's not that crazy. Anyway, wrap up every edition of You Better You Bet, in which I get to fill in for Nick Kostos, Chris Mack here on Westwood One Sports, with our 3 favorite moments of the show. We call it our 3 stars. Let's go.
3.
I think we have seen through a couple of practices that Brock Purdy and Mike Evans have it. But through 4 or 5 days of practice, we have seen Brock Purdy and Mike Evans connect on multiple deep balls towards the sideline, over the middle, kind of like how Baker Mayfield did the last couple of years in Tampa Bay. Just gives his Hall of Fame wide receiver a chance to catch the football.
Sterling Bennett, a 95-7 the game in San Francisco just a few moments ago, talking about before Mike Evans left practice early yesterday for the Niners. He and Purdy look pretty good together so far in camp. There's a lot going wrong in Niners camp with all the injuries, but one of the things that may be going well, a possible Purdy-Evans connection They need somebody to throw the ball to. They could do worse than Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel. So if that connection can really form some sort of bond in the preseason, or at least in training camp, because how much are you going to play Evans during the preseason? It could be a big benefit to the Niners once we get to the regular season, assuming they can somehow get healthy. Our number 2 star.
2.
But when you have that skill set with Drake and Kyle and obviously Bijan, you just got to get the quarterback position right. And that's one of these things that everybody's out here now looking at the competition. Tua's finally getting to do a lot of 11-on-11 today live. Michael's obviously still not doing it. You can have all the skill you want, but if you don't have that position right, the most important position in sports, in my opinion, it's hard to win games.
Randy McMichael in 92.9 The Game in Atlanta talking about, yeah, it's great. They've extended Bijan. They've extended Drake London. They've extended Kyle Pitts in Atlanta. They have no idea what the quarterback position is going to look like. Is it Tua? Is it Michael Penix Jr.? Is either one of them really a franchise caliber quarterback? You just hope one of them can just stay healthy enough and just be good enough to properly distribute the football to those weapons that they have in the offense in Atlanta. And maybe it's enough to win 9 games and maybe the NFC South. There's a lot of maybes there. Our number 1 star of the day.
1.
Yeah, the number one thing that stood out offensively, Chris, is it felt like Hurts during most of the team periods was exclusively under center. And I know that is a big difference in this offense going into 2026. I keep saying it, though. They've got like the widest range of success in the NFL for this year. I can see them being a 7-win team. I can see them representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Linnell Willingham, late nights and weekends here on Westwood One Sports on his training camp tour from Baltimore to New York to Pittsburgh to Washington to Cleveland and Philly, where just a couple of days ago he got to see Jalen Hurts inside that Sean Mannion offense and under center a lot more. That's a positive indication. If I'm an Eagles fan or somebody that expects the Eagles to bounce back this year on offense, that is a positive indication that Hurts is doing some of the things that they want to do with him in that offense. You get that. You get a bounce-back year from Saquon Barkley. You get a healthy offensive line. And the Eagles are maybe not just winning the division, but doing something more. Once again, getting back on track. But that was great to get Linnell checking in from the road, where it sounds like it's dangerous out there on the roads in the D.C. area. So credit to Linnell for holding it together while he was on the drive to Commander's Camp with us and sharing all that he's learned over the last couple of weeks during his training camp tour. The conversations that have taken place in the chat today, whether they be arguments about how many wide receivers in the league are better than Zay Flowers, whether it be the arguments about whether Babe Ruth was real or not. Once again, Tyler Morales, one of our producers, is back on his ish, as they say, claiming that Babe Ruth wasn't real because Pete Crow Armstrong is now parroting these thoughts. Bro, what are we doing? Serious. I understand there isn't a lot of video of these things, but this generation can't also be that hung up on, oh, clips or it didn't happen. Picks or it didn't happen, that you can't acknowledge that certain things happened before photography and video, right? I mean, come on. You guys are smarter than this. You manage to keep me on the air and sounding and looking somewhat semi-intelligent when I fill in for Nick. I feel like you're up to the task of understanding that these things are real. Great point, Laura. These kids don't even know Rage Against the Machine and Tom Morello. What am I doing even bothering, wasting my time? Thanks to Laura on the board. Thanks to Tyler, Kenny, Dan, Mike, and of course Bill, all behind the scenes. I'm Chris Mack. Keep it here for Black and Abdallah next, right here on Westwood One Sports.